joined by my colleagues, Nuri Martinez, Gil Cedillo, and Paul Krikorian. We've got some cards. I think, though, members, without objection, we'll take item 3 on consent. And then so, Mr. Clerk, let's go to item number 1, please.
Item number 1 is a BCA report relative to enforcement, outreach, and implementation of a Fair Chance Initiative, also known as Ban the Box, including individual assessment requirements and a fair chance process. This item was continued from the meeting of June 14th, 2016.
All right, thank you. We've been joined by Marquise Harris Dawson from the Great 8 District. And we've got 3 cards on this item. Let's call up Jamie Garcia, Antonio Ramirez, and Alex Davis, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jaime Garcia with the Hospital Association of Southern California, which represents over 40 hospitals within the city of Los Angeles, and we appreciate the opportunity to provide comment on this item. Foremost, we appreciate the time and effort that the Bureau of Contract Administration invested in developing this report. More importantly, we're pleased that this report acknowledges the need to provide exemption for positions that provide services and direct care to minors and vulnerable adults. Hospitals certainly fall within this category as they provide care to children and vulnerable adults who are hospitalized. The care team extends beyond the professionals such as physicians, nurses, respiratory therapists, and others. But we must also not lose sight that these individuals in the environmental care services, dietary, also have access to patients who are hospitalized. I urge that this committee support this recommendation in terms of the exemption piece. In closing, hospitals will continue to support the summer youth employment programs and other mentoring opportunities for youth as we continue to partner with community colleges, health sciences, and programs in an effort to inspire individuals to enter the healthcare pipeline as we address workforce shortages in this city and county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the Council. My name is Alex. I'm with the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, VICA. Collectively, we represent over 400 Valley and local businesses and nonprofits. And since this committee and the Council first began discussing the Ban the Box ordinance, we appreciate the opportunity to share with you our continued concerns. And that's that a citywide mandate prescribing how and who to hire is a bad policy. Many local businesses simply cannot afford to invest the additional time to go through the hiring process for candidates who would be otherwise barred from the position. So we remain opposed to this ordinance and appreciate your due caution going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know what the Ban the Box is and the Fair Chance Initiative. But what I do know is that we have not hired military veterans. Again and again, the most professional, the most skilled, the most hardworking. They exercise excellent due diligence. And I tell you, you can't do it any better than hiring military. And so please stop hiring cheap labor. You have such shoddy, substandard presentation with these wetbacks and gangbangers. I would hope that you start hiring American citizens, legal law-abiding citizens, and military veterans, and you will see our service and retail skyrocket. You will see the retail industry skyrocket. Again, let us bring the bulk of our military veterans and raise the standards of America. Stop ghettoizing America. Stop hiring this cheap labor crap. They have no pride. They have no respect for this country. Again, hire military. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments and for those on this the subject. Ban the Box, something we have been mulling over for the past several months. We've seen action being taken at the federal level. President Obama has come out in support of this initiative. We've seen it at the state level, and so we're excited to see some movement at the local level. The action we're going to be taking today is merely going to be asking the city attorney to come back with a draft ordinance. And so there's still going to be several bites at the apple. But I do want to thank First of all, BCA for its strong, firm leadership in this discussion. Also, my colleagues on the council and the advocates. I just want to thank the advocates for their concerns and for their expressions of caution and support. We are all in this together, and we all have to find a way to make it successful, and I'm confident that we can do that. So let's call BCA up to the table for a kind of overview on where we are.
Good afternoon, Chairman Price, council members. John Reamer, the Director of the Bureau of Contract Administration. I'm pleased to come before you and share with you aspects of a report that we provided you dated June 9, 2016, in response to directive from this committee in November of 2015, putting together a enforcement plan, if you will, recommendation for the Fair Chance Hiring Ban the Box Ordinance. We followed the pattern that we used with the minimum wage theft ordinances as it relates to breaking down our efforts in 4 areas. The first being informing the community. What we found in meeting with at least 5 major cities and industry experts is that the key to this effort will be inform, educate, educate, educate. We are recommending that as part of this effort, we currently have, we being the Bureau of Contract Administration, a contractual service agreement with several community groups that are assisting us in our efforts with minimum wage. We penned that RFQ in such a way that it is expandable and that it would fit nicely in an effort here to educate and inform both employees and employers. The second, intake concerns with respect to increasing the probability of complaints being submitted, especially given the fact that there are some employees that may be concerned about retaliation. We suggested that there be an accessible communication system, such as a pretty robust website, that 365 days are allowed from the date the violation occurs, from when a complaint can ultimately be submitted, and implementing a fast-track system so that we can expeditiously respond to those complaints that are very clear and obvious, along with proactively monitoring job sites, websites, to make sure that if we see anything that's obvious, we can address it right away. The third, investigating complaints, making sure that there is an effectiveness in making sure that this law is comprehensible. We, as already has been acknowledged, recommend that there are a specified list of exemptions. Not every position should fall under this, and we speak to that. That there is notifications posted at the workplace, that individual assessments are conducted by employers prior to an adverse action being carried out, that the employer provides the applicant with a fair chance process. If there is an adverse action, that applicant has an opportunity to respond to it, and we're recommending 5 days be the time period given. That there's a requirement for employers to preserve documentation as it relates to any employment decisions that they make for a period of 3 years is what they would have to hold it for. Put language.
Is that common in other jurisdictions, that 3-year period?
3-year period, yes. So when an employee decision or a hire decision has been made, then the documentation that went to support that decision, one way or the other, positive or adverse action, that the employer preserves that information for 3 years. That the DAA will provide rules and regulations that will speak to how this will be administered, and the possibility of mediation between the employer and the complainant. And then lastly, implement corrective actions, increasing the effectiveness of enforcement, that there is subpoena power provided the DAA. There's a private right of action preserved for the complainant, that a penalty structure is put in place, which we've given a breakdown of the penalty structure as it relates to first violation, then second and subsequent violations. The first violation, a penalty up to $500 per aggrieved party, with the second violation up to $1,000, and the third up to $2,000. The up to is important. We've maintained consistency with our approach as it relates to minimum wage. This gives a range, if you will, recognizing that there will be some violations that will be very egregious. Others, it could be out of ignorance and innocence, and the investigation would speak to that issue. A fine
So
schedule.
we've given, and just kind of cut in for a second, we've given the BCA quite a bit of discretion in this process.
Yes, there is discretion, and we appreciate that. You provided that to us for the minimum wage, and we have argued that this is both business and employee friendly. It allows us to see whether or not what the true case and the true facts are surrounding this. And it's consistent with the approach that we use with prevailing wage enforcement and living wage enforcement. So this is not in any way suggesting that someone who has egregiously violated this is going to get off at all. What it's saying is that for some reason, this is a large city, you might have an employer that for whatever reason they just weren't aware, they did not know. Our investigation would bring that to light. It could very well be a case where once the employer knows, they rectify the situation with the complainant and the issue's resolved. So there are a number of things that can go into having the up to. Without the up to language, we would be locked in with a penalty amount that we would have to assess.
I have a quick question, Mr. President.
Yes.
So say it's going to take some time before the employer knows that such ban exists. So what's the time period? How long are we giving folks to know what the law is? Is it 2 years? Is it up to 5 years? There's only so much you can claim, ignorance before you're trying to dodge
No,
the law. So I'm curious. What's the time frame?
We've given the complainant 365 days from the time it happens until they're notified.
And again, that's consistent with other jurisdictions, or
Excuse me?
or is that consistent with other jurisdictions? Or are we
Other
providing?
jurisdictions are longer, some are shorter. It depends on which one. And with respect to how much time we give, it all depends. You could have, let's say the ordinance goes into effect within the next 90 days. It goes through council, and we have an ordinance, and the implementation period is put in place. But a business opens a year from now. So the ordinance has been in place for a while, but the business is very new. All of these things will go into effect. What we have done before and we will do here is we will put guidelines that govern the up to, so it will not in any way be subjective, but there will be objective measurements that we will use to identify as it relates to the infraction. Okay, did you know? Is there evidence to suggest you could have known? Did you have things posted? And that's why the first part of the 4 I's, the information, is so critical. And utilizing the relationships that we have currently, getting the information out. What the other 5 cities had clearly locked in place was a robust information education program. Getting the word out to as many businesses as they could, using social media, whatever tools of communication were available, so that it would, as you said, minimize, if not eliminate, someone's ability to say, I did not know. With that said, there will be some that will say that, and there will be some that won't. And this gives us some latitude. With the fine schedule, we address the notion of posting, the notification of ban the box at the work site. The documentation, there is up to $500 if you have not retained this information for a period of time, as well as cooperation with the DA's investigation, up to $500. One thing that is not in our report directly, but it's mentioned in theory and spirit, is retaliation. And what I would like to submit or try to add is the importance of having retaliation being included in part of the fine schedule. And we have language that we have consistently used throughout other ordinances, living wage being one, that we can submit for your consideration, that just speaks to the importance of an employer not holding against anyone who chooses to file a complaint.
So these penalties against retaliation?
Yes,
And how much would that be?
we are recommending up to $1,000.
You got some language you can provide us?
Yes.
All right. Members, any comments? As I said, this is, a process. We're going to ask the city attorney to come back with an ordinance. We'll have a chance to continue tweaking it before we give the final okay. Senator.
Yes, Senator, thank you so much. A couple of things. I appreciate, first of all, I want to tell you how much I appreciate the work that you've done, the quality of your work. There's a couple of things that I'm looking for. You talked about the minimum wage. Maybe we get a side-by-side. I mean, my sense is you're trying to have conformity on both sides. Do these mirror each other exactly?
Not exactly. Many of the cities that also have a minimum wage ordinance, the enforcement for a fair chance or ban the box rest in that office also. Given the city of LA's move in the area of this being a citywide effort, that is a parallel in that the minimum wage is citywide, and this fair chance ordinance will also be citywide. So we're going to be working with, having interaction with the employers on these same areas. So we attempted to mirror the approach to preserve consistency. So in their dealing with our office, they would see the same approach, both from the investigative standpoint as well as the information education standpoint.
I would like to get to a point where we have language that is no less than. And let me tell you where I think that that's appropriate. There are some, you've done great work in putting out notice. I think notice is very, very important. People need to know what the law is before they should be dinged for not being in compliance. There are some reasons where I think people may violate the law where we would hold them harmless, right? Inadvertence, mistake, fraud. I mean, these are situations where we would say, hey, you're free there. But there are other circumstances, the more egregious ones that you've talked about, that where I think we need to give a little more direction or a little more guidance with language that is about no less than, so that we then begin to go a little deeper, a little more breadth to it, about here's some areas that are clearly places where we don't want to ding an employer, right? Because we want to keep this both employee and employer friendly. Here's some gray areas and some considerations to have, the points I laid out. But then on the other hand, here are some circumstances where you have an employer who's received notice, is a substantive employer, maybe a chain, they have a different philosophy, and we have trouble getting them to comply. I think we want to then get into an area where we say there is going to be a fine, and it's going to be no less than this number, and no less than up to, so that we can bring more comfort to the employees that we really have teeth in our efforts here.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
Mr. Cedillo, this is all in relation to the reward that you're referring to?
Both the reward and the penalty.
Well, the way I look at it is, shouldn't the award be more of an incentive for the aggrieved party to speak out, as opposed to fostering an environment of bounty hunters? I mean, that should be the point of us
We found
putting up a reward.
Yeah, the balancing here was as it related to establishing a dollar amount. If the amount is too low, then there's no incentive at all for anyone to speak out. If it's too high, then you will be bombarded with complaints that don't necessarily have merit. There's no science to it at all. It's
Right, but the
more-
way I see it is the worker that's being taken advantage of is the one that we need to encourage to come forward.
Yes.
And so when we foster that, I think you really foster the true empowerment of the worker, which is
Yes.
why, that's how I see the reward being set up. I mean, it could be 500, it could be up to $1,000, as long as we incentivize the worker to be able to speak out against the employer. And then, of course, you have to prove it. But again, the way I see it, instead of creating an environment of bounty hunters, I think we need to create an environment to support and empower the worker to be able to speak up.
The $500 amount was an attempt to do that very thing. The question that has been raised before in discussions would be, okay, you started at $500 and then the second violation goes to $1,000. Does that $1,000 go to the worker? And our response to that would be no, because now we've shifted to, we potentially have an employer here that's completely ignoring the ordinance, and we want to drive home the point of change in behavior. If you were to ask me what would success look like, success would be not so much recouping or providing for the complainant the $500, but can we get them that job? Can we get that employer to recognize that this second chance is something that is beneficial and warranted, not holding the past against them, but taking a look at the present and providing them an opportunity for the future. So it does both. It encourages that person to say something, not so much that they're looking for the $500, but it's an amount that they're willing to speak out, but ultimately to provide us the opportunity to work with that employer to change the behavior so that they will see that individual in a different light. And that's where I'm believing we ultimately want to go and ultimately what we want to achieve.
Well, I'm not asking about the amount. I'm asking, my question was more about the actual recipient of the award. To incentivize the worker again, to empower the worker to be able to speak up against some of these.
That is a purpose, yes.
Allegations. Okay. I just want to make sure we don't lose ourselves in that. That to me is the most important part about the reward structure.
I appreciate that clarity.
That's a good comment. In fact, Councilwoman Martinez and Councilman Cedillo both made good points regarding that. I think, however, we're going to ask the city attorney to prepare a draft ordinance pursuant to the recommendations made by BCA at this time. And we still have a chance to come back and tweak the penalty portion of it before we have a final approval.
Chairman, if I might.
Yes.
I was reminded that I should read, just for the record, our recommendation as it relates to the retaliation language.
Okay.
And it reads as follows: neither an employer, as defined in this article, nor any other person employing individuals shall discharge, reduce in compensation, or otherwise discriminate against any employee for complaining to the city with regard to the employer's compliance or anticipated compliance with this article, for opposing any practice prescribed by this article, for participating in proceedings related to this article, for seeking to enforce his or her rights under this article by any lawful means, or for otherwise asserting rights under this article. That's what we're submitting as a recommendation.
Okay, great. So members, without objection, I move that we approve the BCA report recommendations as amended, that we request the city attorney to incorporate the BCA report recommendations into the previously requested draft ordinance, and that we authorize the CLA to make technical corrections as necessary to accomplish the intent of the recommendations. There are no objections.
I trust the city attorney has heard the comments of both myself and Councilmember Martinez, and those will be considered and incorporated appropriately.
Yes.
Point of clarification, what's the timeline looking like? When is the ordinance going to come before this committee and on to council? It just seems like this item's been in this committee for a long time. So I'm just trying to get a sense as to when are we finally going to be able to move this along?
You know, we're on recess next month, so I imagine we come back.
Come back?
Ready to move it.
Do you see this coming to us in September?
We'll work with the city attorney's office and do all we can to make that happen.
But we want to fast track it, that's for sure.
Well, I want to be clear about what we're doing, because this item was continued from our last meeting. I'm not sure why, but I just want to make sure that we're on track to move this along.
Great. Okay, without any further discussion or objections, that will be the order for item number 1. Thank you. Okay, we've got item number 2.
Item number 2 is a city clerk report and ordinance relative to the establishment of the Venice Beach Business Improvement District.
Okay, we have a number of cards, and I see the presence of the councilman from the area. Mr. Bonham, I'm going to invite you up to make some remarks. And then we'll take some cards, and then we'll...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thanks for giving me a couple of moments to address this item. As the chair said, this is a request to approve an ordinance to create a Venice Beach Business Improvement District. Many of you have business improvement districts. We have them throughout the city of Los Angeles. They have been a great benefit to the communities they've been in and a great partner with the city in reducing some of our costs and having our partners, property owners, and businesses step forward and help us with things like street maintenance and picking up trash and security and promoting an area. This is something that I have been eager to see happen since the day I took office about 3 years ago. My predecessor, Mr. Rosendahl, tried to get it started, and those efforts never bore fruit. We have had a renewed sense of energy around this with property owners and the businesses in the local area for the past couple years, and the item is now before us. To lay out a little context, I want to remind folks about how confusing, in terms of jurisdiction, Venice Beach is. We have part of the area that we all think of as Venice Beach, which is governed by Public Works. Then we have another part that is governed by Recreation and Parks, and then another part that is maintained by County Beaches and Harbors, the Sand. And it has made governing Venice Beach rather difficult over the years. I'm very glad that another of my initiatives was recently approved by the city. We now have an actual supervisor for Venice Beach, a superintendent for the area who's providing global oversight and management. But one of the missing pieces really is the investment in promoting the area, in cleaning up the area, and keeping the area secure and safe. And the bid is a huge opportunity to do that. I'm glad to report that LA Metro voted last week to approve it and be a member of the bid. And we would be one of the larger members of the bid because it is the length of Venice Beach. I understand that there will be a number of folks who will come up and speak on the item. There will be some today who are here in support. This is Venice, where everything is controversial, so there will be a number of folks who will come up and speak in opposition. I wanted to come up today and testify personally. This item is a huge priority of mine, and I would really appreciate the committee's favorable consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman. We share your belief that bids play an exciting role in economic life of our communities, and so we're happy to have your comments and your
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I see we have the clerk's office here. Would you care to come up and make some comments before we take general?
Hi, I'm Miranda Pastor, Division Manager for the Neighborhood and Business Improvement
Excuse me, hold
District.
on a second. All right, I'm sorry. Continue.
Miranda Pastor, Division Manager for the Neighborhood and Business Improvement District Division. We have the proposed Venice Beach Business Improvement District, which is comprised of 464 parcels, 349 property owners, and the bid is going to be providing clean and safe activities, district identity, special projects, administration, and management with a total budget of about $1.8 million. It's generally bounded by the Venice Beach Boardwalk, Venice Boulevard, and let's see, Abbott Kinney on the east. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. There's about 24 city parcels in the Business Improvement District and 7 state-owned parcels. And as Councilmember Bonin was referring to, part of those parcels on the boardwalk are owned by the state. However, the city would be responsible for those assessments because there's an agreement that's dated back to 1948 in which the state leased those parcels to the city. And then we have documentation, which is on the council file, which also alludes to the agreement continuing on to this day.
Okay.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair, what's the northern boundary?
The northern boundary is, so let me, if I should have brought my glasses.
South, is it South Venice?
No,
No,
the
that's-
south is Venice.
That's the southern.
Southern border.
Oh, the city limit, the city of Santa Monica.
Oh, all the way up to the Santa Monica border?
Yes, it's, when you, yes, it's, you probably think part of it is LA, but it's really Santa Monica.
I know, I'm very familiar. Thank you.
Members, any other
It
questions before we go
includes
to public
commercial
comment?
parcels.
Just one quick question. Did you say 464 parcels?
Yes. And, you know, some buildings can be on 4 parcels or 6 parcels.
Okay, members, let's take some public comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie Harris, Colleen Sorrow, Mark Lipman, Ira Koslow. Koslow.
Good afternoon. My name is Debbie Diner Harris. I'm Councilmember Bonin's District Director. I think that he said it very clearly how vital this is to the future improvement of Venice Beach and the Venice community in general. This is more than just the beach, as you can see from your map. This includes parcels more east from the beach because Venice is not just one particular area. It's linked. People walk, people bike, people travel between these areas. So it is a little larger than the beach. We are very excited about the potential for this business improvement district. We're excited that the city gets to participate in the business improvement district. We want to partner with our property owners, with our business owners, with our residents. We want to make Venice the best it can be and still retain its quirky character, its history, and the things that make it Venice. But the city can't provide all the things that we would like to provide based on our resources. So by partnering with the BID, we can do those things together and the community will be stronger. We have approximately 16 million visitors coming every year, and so we need to make sure that we are keeping that in mind as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Colleen Sorrow. I reside on Oceanfront Walk, and I'm a stakeholder. First of all, a lot of the residents that I've spoken to knew nothing about this. Granted, the property owners are the ones that are paying for this, but the residents need to be informed. Are you assuring us that we as residents aren't going to be feeling the amount that is going to be charged to the property owners? My building, huge asset number you got there, and I don't even know if she knows about this. There's no money because of these huge tax breaks that have been given to Google and Snapchat. If these breaks weren't so high, then maybe the funds would be there to pay for the stuff to take care of the beach, like more policing, more cleaning, more bathrooms, more taking the trash out. I live right there on the boardwalk. I know what's going on. They said over $1 million, so bottom line is that's not a whole lot of money. The money should be found, and it should be from the tax breaks. We have a desire not to be Silicon Beach or the 3rd Street Promenade. We are Venice Beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Mark Lippman with the Westside Tenants Union. This is one of the most grotesque examples of pay-to-play politics. This is being run by businessmen who are currently being indicted by the city attorney for illegally evicting RSO tenants. This is something that it's basically privatizing our entire community. This is something that our residents, we don't get a vote in. This is something that has been done behind the scenes, behind our backs for the past 2 years, and now it's being thrown onto us by our councilman who has a business plan that doesn't include the people of the community that he's supposed to represent. Please vote against this because this is the worst thing that's happening to Venice. It's taking all our public resources and putting it into private hands, and I wish I had more than a minute to tell you how bad this is because you know, please.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Ira Coslow, resident of Venice, and I have a few points. One, there was no outreach done on this to anybody. This was a surprise. I'm sure if we had known more about this from the business district, there would be a lot more people here. This is a case where it was orchestrated by a man who is under indictment now for getting out residents. Well, the apartment owners will vote on it, but who's going to pay for it? The rents will be raised and we'll lose more affordable housing. I live on Park Avenue right between the two areas that have this business district. I think along the ocean front is one thing. A business district have common interests, but they're going now over the other side of Main Street and including a school. They're including the Windward Circle. They're including a lot of city land as they admitted. So why are we privatizing city land? I don't get it. There's been a lot of things done where residents get hurt.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Okay, Linda Lux, Becky Dennison, Linda Ponet, Mark Sokol.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Sokol?
May I start? Or wait, should I start?
Yes, please.
Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Price and members of the committee. Very nice to see you. My name is Linda Lux. I'm the past president of the Venice Neighborhood Council and president of the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners. I was a 43-year resident of Venice on a small walk street, Wavecrest Avenue, for 43 years. And since I found out about this bid and this hearing on Friday, I've contacted a lot of my former neighbors. No one had heard about it. Up for the last 3 years, there had been a couple of rumors, but no resident, homeowner or tenant alike, has ever been part of any planning process or where the district should be. It's absurd. It's shocking. It's appalling. I was president of the VNC for 4 years. It never came to the VNC. There was no discussions brought. This is like out of the blue, and this is only the owners of commercial buildings on Oceanfront Walk. Venice Beach is a residential area, but for Oceanfront Walk, every place you look, it's residences, and we have had no warning at all. It's wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Becky Dennison with Venice Community Housing, and we work to preserve a diverse and inclusive Venice in a number of ways. We own property, and we are a property owner in this proposed bid. We did not return our petition. We will vote no against the bid, mostly because it doesn't promote any inclusion or diversity. It is solely a voice of commercial property owners, and your vote is weighted by the amount of property that you have or the assessment of your property, which goes entirely against the idea of a people's beach and having a people's voice in the decisions that impact us. Obviously, we have huge concerns about private security as advocates for homeless residents in Venice, and the city has had numerous problems with private security in bids. I will also say there are a couple problematic people on the committee that are being sued by you as the city now. There are also good people on the committee, and we're going to continue to work with them to figure out whether or not there can be a larger voice for people who aren't property owners, whether we can limit private security. But until we get there, we need to oppose this, and we need you to slow the process down.
Thank you.
Lydia Ponce, Venice Beach. Good afternoon. George Francisco, Business Committee Chair, held meetings without proper notice, public notice, minutes and agendas about a year. He did not post these. We brought this to the VNC attention, and they did nothing, but magically, a month later, the agendas and minutes they appeared, and this is a violation of the Brown Act. Carl Lambert, VCC President, pro-bid, District Attorney, just charged Lambert for running illegal hotels. The bid criminalizes unhoused, further privatizes our public beach. Bonin knows all this, which makes him part of the problem, as we and people of color in Venice have yet to meet with him and have been asking for the last 2 years. Push this back to the community. This bid is about select few economic elite who can afford a $30 cheeseburger and a $25 parking spot. The EBT mini markets are disappearing. This bid is not vetted, or it was not inclusive in its planning, in its pay-to-play participate with manipulation by VNC Business Committee. Please push it back. Push it back to the 3 miles that is Venice.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Price and the rest of the City Council members that are here today. I'm Mark Sokol, and my family owns the Hotel Irwood at Venice Beach. And first, I want to commend Councilmember Bonin for promoting the bid as a priority in his district. We need to look at this from a higher level. And what this is going to do is going to supplement the base resources that we get, which are extremely insufficient based on the volume of people that come to Venice from all over the world and the city of Los Angeles. Let's remember that a lot of the people that come to Venice Beach are Angelinos, which is great. We need additional security, we need cleanup crews, and we intend to work together with the entire community, the social service agencies, the residents, and the other businesses in the area to ensure that it's a successful bid. And we urge you for your support.
All right, thank you. Okay, Tara Devine, Stephen Humana, and Margaret Mosley? Malloy, thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Tara Devine, Devine Strategies. I am the consultant that has been working with the property owners in Venice for about, I think, nearly 18 months to develop a plan and services that they think will benefit their area. I would just add a few comments, and then I'm available to answer any questions you might have about our process. But bids exist because city services do not meet the existing needs of an area. Any neighborhood that has services that are being met does not have a bid. Areas such as Venice Beach have a need that vastly exceeds what the city is able to provide. And that is what bids are for. That is why stakeholders voluntarily choose to assess themselves an additional amount of money to pay for those services. As was mentioned, this bid includes 464 properties, very, very small in nature. Venice is a very, I would simply add that we have done tremendous outreach for this process. We have spoken to everyone that has contacted us. I have not been contacted by the people that are in this room, to my knowledge, based on the names that I've heard thus far.
Well, now you know who they are, so maybe you can have a conversation. Okay. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Steve Human. I work for Sidewalk Enterprises, which owns several properties on the Venice Boardwalk. You know, we have a lot of issues down there. I'm sure you guys are familiar. We have drug dealing, crime. We have fights. I've witnessed stabbings down there. We also have not quite as bad issues, but still tough to deal with: trash, graffiti, stickers, you know, filthy sidewalks, things like that. And we need the city's help with those issues, but the city doesn't have the resources. And so a number of property owners want to step up and help. Working together, that's where the bid comes in. And, you know, we've had the properties on the boardwalk, some of them since 1976. We've been around for a long time. We understand the environment out there, and we really feel like the bid will help. It was a long process. It's been going on for a few years. We hired Tara, a bid consultant, and worked with the property owners over several years to form this plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, sirs and ladies. Please understand that the public has absolutely no information on the project so far. The single only public presentation happened on April 19th at the Venice Neighborhood Council meeting, where Debbie Diner Harris in the room presented for 5 minutes, and we were not allowed by the president of the committee to have any questions and answers. Ms. Devine has presented, I guess, the process to the city clerk's office, whom I spoke with today. There are no records of meetings, no dates and locations of meetings, no agendas of meetings, and no minutes of meetings. There is no public process. This needs to go back to the public. It is very obvious, as Ms. Diner stated in her 5-minute presentation, that there are large areas of public property, including Windward Plaza and beyond, involved. So the city is a participant in the bid. That's our land. That's not city private like the private entity of the city. That's public resource. There's a $440,000 commitment for the city for their part of participation in the bid. That's our money. Please send it back to the public process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all the comments. Madam Clerk, we understand that the petition has reached the threshold, the minimum threshold of support. Could you tell us where we are in the process and what our action today will do?
Pursuant to state law, we are required to get more than 50% petition. At the time of the clerk report, we were at 52%, and we're currently more than 53% a petition level, the weighted petition. This stage in the process, it will go before council. With council, if they choose to adopt the ordinance of intention, then we're required to have the mayor sign the ordinance. There's a 45-day notice period where we'll notify the property owners, and then there will be a public hearing after that 45-day period for the public to come in and comment on the matter, and then the ordinance of establishment will go forward to council.
Members, any other questions?
So the petition includes some city-owned properties as respondents, correct?
We have 24 city-owned parcels out of the 464 parcels.
And any of those for which there's a commercial operation on that city property will be assessed?
Correct.
At the same rate as any other business would be?
All of the parcels in this business improvement district are commercially zoned parcels.
Okay. So even if they're publicly owned, they'll still be assessed based on their commercial activity?
Correct.
Okay. And what will be the maintenance of effort guarantee so that once the bid is in place, because as it is right now, the city, as several of the speakers have mentioned, the city cannot meet all of the, or has not met all of the needs that Venice Beach has, but there are extraordinary expenditures that the city is making in Venice Beach that it's not making anywhere else. For example, in parks maintenance and other things, thanks to the budget appropriations that we've made for Venice Beach that Mr. Bonin has led on. What guarantee do the people of Venice have that those efforts will be maintained once the bid is in place instead of being supplanted by bid expenditures?
Well, currently we just had the budget process that was adopted, and funds that were allocated to Venice should continue to go to Venice. But in addition to that, if you'll notice the last recommendation of our report, we're asking for Board of Public Works and Rec and Parks to work with the city clerk to establish a baseline services agreement.
So that anything that the bid provides will be in addition to what the city is currently providing as a maintenance of effort.
Correct. Business improvement districts are supposed to provide services that are over and beyond the services that the city provides. Okay. That's the nature of them. They're usually, business improvement districts are established in order, usually in a commercial area in which the property owners, they want something better. They want to improve their commerce. Right. They want to attract more people, pedestrians, and just business. And so they want to clean up their area, because what we find is that when areas are graffiti laden or broken windows, trashy, usually commerce goes down. So when those items are improved, usually commerce goes up. And so a lot of commercial areas have chosen to establish business improvement districts in order to combat those problems.
Thank you.
Question. What was the budget allocation in this year's budget on those additional resources you just mentioned for Venice? How much was that?
I wish I could remember all the details offhand, but there was, I think there was $500,000 set aside. Maybe you can speak to it better.
Well, in terms of the unappropriated balance, there was money set aside in the unappropriated balance for these assessments, but in terms of the Rec and Parks budget, I can't speak to that.
No, the Rec and Parks budget. Do you recall that?
The Rec and Parks budget?
So Debbie Diner-Harris, Councilmember Bonin's office. So we did have an increase this year because we have a new superintendent. I'm not aware of any additional Rec and Parks budget other than the superintendent. We still have massive budget just from our regular cleaning of bathrooms and maintenance, et cetera. What we do have, This year, I believe was the third budget allocation, I'm second or third, is for cleanup, sanitation cleanups in Venice that focus on the beach every Friday, and then we do 2 or 3 other dedicated locations in Venice. And that has been a wonderful thing. It's still not enough, I'm sure you all know about our issues. So as Miranda said, this is over and above what we can do.
No, my question was just a question about resources. The rest of us are in need as well. So I just wanted to know how that allocation was made. Is it an ongoing line item every year, or was this like a one?
We have no such thing. Yeah, every
I know
budget
you don't,
is a
Mr.
new effort.
Mr. Budget Chair,
Every
but
budget
I have
is a
to
new
still
effort.
ask, where are these resources coming from?
So I do believe these are
How are
funded.
these allocations being made?
I believe that they are, and I'm not the expert on this, but I believe that it was funded in the same way that the Operation Healthy Streets in Skid Row was funded, because Venice had such a significant issue. Yeah.
You answered it, thanks.
Okay, well, no other questions. I'm going to recommend that we approve the city clerk report recommendations on this item. And if there are no objections, that will be the order.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've got some public comment cards. We'd like to invite Ms. Malloy up and Antonia Ramirez.
I'm horribly disappointed to say this is disgusting. There is no public process. We've explained that to you. I received an email on June 22nd from Debbie Diner Harris. It says, and please note on the bid, I am the only contact person on that issue in this office. Also, our office did not lead any of the meetings or planning of the bid. This was done to the bid's executive committee and the city clerk's office. We cannot find out who the executive committee is. There have been 4 city clerks appointed to the bid. They have no agendas, no meetings, no records. This is a coup, and you are facilitating a coup of the public process. Shame on you all. Absolutely friggin' shame on you all. 80% tax breaks for all IT companies that have displaced so many residents in Venice. And now you scratch the surface of land use. And our city planning department allows 10 square feet of existing foundation to be assessed as a renovation and extension. That's a scam on property tax money that belongs to the public. Who benefits? Developers. Who benefits? Really rich property owners. The public is getting screwed and screwed and screwed, and you all, every single one of you, are sitting here saying yes to Mike Bonin. Do you trade favors? I don't understand your process, but we have explained to you there has been no public process. Please look at Mr. Lambert in his own words in 2013.
Thank you, ma'am.
We already have Bonin and we have Rosendahl. We just have to turn the other heads.
Okay, thank you.
2013, it's on YouTube. He explained
Ms. Ramirez?
Thank you. Economic development will only thrive and be revitalized if you stop hiring these goddamn racist wetbacks and chango gangbanging pussies, thieves, and pigs in all restaurants, Department of Transportation, and hotels. And second of all, economic will also revitalize in downtown Los Angeles. If you start cleaning up the steps in City Hall, start cleaning up all the trash, the filth, and the stench all over Los Angeles. Everything and everywhere in downtown LA stinks. Urine, feces, urine and feces, and urine and feces. That's all you see around downtown LA. Don't you have any embarrassment? I walk through there, I'm embarrassed. I sleep at the law library and I bring my bottles of bleach. I pay, I douse it with bleach, and I bring my Lysols and I clean where I sleep. I pay for it. I didn't ask the city to pay for the bleaches. I buy them, I lug them in my shopping cart, and I douse them, and I sleep clean. God bless America.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, anything else on our agenda today?
No, I put in a card for public comment. I did. They didn't open it for an item that's not on the agenda.
All right, ma'am, you've got 1 minute, please.
It's just 1 minute. Thank you. Lydia Ponce, Venice Beach. We live in the coastal zone where there's protections for our community, all socioeconomic demographics, specific coastal zone development requirements, and to protect the public coastal access are being ignored. City planning have employees at the counter who do not know the mellow state law. They don't know what it is, but they approve project applications every day with zero knowledge. There is illegal conversion of resident to commercial, and right now, there's mixed-use proposals before you that include residential, so it is important that not all of it is business, it's not commercial. We're against this corporate takeover as the shared economy has offered. It's not so inclusive and it's not so shared. The short-term rentals have displaced and are breaking up our community, and our neighbors disappear. The shared economy creates jobs, but people still struggle to make a living, pay rent, and they must travel for hours to get to their jobs. Too few Angelenos employees live near their jobs, displaced further and further away from their communities. Please help us repeal that 5-year 80% tax break. There's the services, there's the funding, even for you in your areas.
Okay, thank you.
Please
Thank you
help us.
Thank you for your comments, and I want to thank everyone for participating in the meeting this afternoon. This meeting is adjourned.